All right, we're back. It's MAPD714. That is iOS development, and this is fundamentals in the fall 2017 semester at Centennial. We are week 2, part 1 of our broadcast, and I want to talk about assignment 1 details, right, with you. So assignment 1 is posted already up on eCentennial. That's where you'll find it. Please go up on eCentennial if you want to see the document with me. But more or less, it's a very simple assignment that I've given you. Let's talk about the details here. Last year, I kind of did this in the advanced side, but only because we had some mix-ups that happened in the fundamental side. This year, we're doing it on this side here, right? So you're going to build a simple calculator. Okay, now you're looking at it going, a simple calculator? Tom, are you kidding me? That's the easiest thing to do ever, right? Yeah, the devil's in the details. And I really mean that by devil's in the details. A calculator app to me is one of my Hello World apps, okay? I have several Hello World apps. A calculator program is one of them, right? I also make a to-do app as my Hello World app in different platforms, whatever platform you want. And I think as a developer, you should have those to-do or Hello World apps that you use to learn another platform. Android, and I'm new, right? Then I want to have some Hello World apps that I've done. And I don't mean Hello World as in Hello World. I mean simple apps that I'm going to use to learn the platform. And this is one of those simple apps. The other one I use is, like I said, a to-do list. And the other one I do is some kind of game, all right? Believe it or not. If I could do those 3 things, a to-do list means I need some kind of persistence, data persistence. A Hello World app means I know how to put together a simple interface. And a game means I can build things from scratch, programmatically, without any kind of drag and drop, right? If I can do those things on any platform, I know the platform at the end, somewhat, okay? To get going on it anyway. So this is one of my first to-do apps for you guys, right? This is like app number 1, which is like my Hello World app for how do I learn how to put some stuff on my user interface. This is an individual assignment. This is not a group assignment, okay? Do week 4. So that's September 26th. If you look at the dates, that's a Tuesday, right? Why am I not making it on the Friday or on the Wednesday when we get together? Because I don't want you to work on your assignment when you're in class with me, right? On that day when it's due, right? That's bad, right? So I'm gonna make it do the day before. Now please don't work on this app in class when you have the other class on Tuesday, right? Which would be Victor's gonna kill me. Right? He'll be really angry. So what are you working on? I'm working on my iOS app, my iOS app for tomorrow, right? You know, but you need to find time for doing this, right? Now, let's look at the details here. So using Xcode and the latest version of iOS SDK, whatever that is that we have installed in the system in front of us, please do not download iOS 11. I don't recommend that because of when it's going to be released. Or Xcode 9, okay? Or High Sierra before the end of semester. I highly recommend not to do this for a couple reasons. And if anyone has a objection to this, put your hand up. We can talk about it now, and I'll tell you why. Right? I'm going to try and do the same thing. I'm really going to try. You have the beta. Are you running the beta? Yeah. Please be careful because your stuff when you hand it to me will be different than everybody else's, and I'll have to upgrade my system to test your stuff. Okay, all right, so let's talk about it at the break, but typically what I'd like you to do, unless you're, I got one person that's in the corner there. Well, the reason why I'm saying not to do it is because it may cause problems, and especially when you upgrade. If you have a machine you bought, if you have a Mac that you recently purchased or you've had for a while, and you try and update to Mac OS Sierra, when it gets released in public release, sometimes they have glitches, all right? It's not always a smooth release. Most times it is. Most times no problems. Sometimes it'll mess you up. And for some versions of the MacBook product or whatever. So please wait until at least a patch or 2 comes out, which is probably going to happen before the end of semester. Why am I saying this? Because if we start with iOS 11 and Swift 4 in January, we're going to have books. Like on everything, right? We're going to have materials, which is good. We're going to have some tests that have been already done by then, some stuff that's happening. Because remember, you're in student mode right now, for the most part, right? So I want you guys to have as little problems as possible. Now, here's the thing. Even the stuff I'm going to tell you, There's going to be some stuff we need to change, right? Because things have changed since the book came out, right? So yes, there's going to be stuff that comes out anyway. We're going to have to change around. It's just that I want you to hold off as much as possible before upgrading. So when it says iOS SDK latest and Swift programming language, this means that this year it's Swift 3 and iOS 10 that we're targeting. That's our target, okay? You might have the latest version of iOS 11. Please target iOS 10, okay? And use Swift 3 if you can, not Swift 4, right? And that way we're going to be okay. So, so this is what you're building. So now I give an example. This is what's built into the Mac. So if I actually go to calculator here in the Mac, remember we did this? Calculator. This is the extended version, but what I'm looking for actually is this, right? It's almost the exact same, right? So here's the calculator, right? So you can see that this is the same calculator from the Mac, the one I just took a picture of right here instead of the black. But at the end of the day, it looks easy, but if you think about what I want, when you press a number button, like 7, right, as an example, it replaces the 0 with 7, right? And when I press an 8, it comes after the 7. Now remember, what we talked about is that this looks like an easy thing, and doing basic operations like this look easy. But what if I do something like this? 8 plus 8 times 2 divided by 3, you know, plus 4, right? Remember, I mean, you know, it's got to work like that, like just like it works now. I don't need the percent to work. I don't need percentage. So please don't use this. I don't care about that. The plus minus is not required, right? I don't need you to put plus minus for now. But you need the buttons, you need the clear, you need the decimal, and you need all these basic functionalities, these operators. So the ones in this orange, this burnt orange kind of color right here, these are all the operators you need. You need all these buttons right here, the clear, and that's it. And some kind of result area that the result is going to appear. Okay? Decimals got to be there. It's got to be it's got to handle floating point numbers, and integers. No, I'm going to talk about that. I'm showing you this is the basic calculator. We're talking about it. You're making a calculator for a phone. This is a calculator that's not the same shape as a phone, right? So I want you to make the calculator so it fits your phone. And here's the great thing. I want you to make it your own. I don't want this calculator to look like simple buttons that we're going to drag and drop from the interface. I want you to make the buttons look like your own buttons, which means that you need to work with the UI UX professor. He's going to talk about Sketch next week, right? Where you're going to be using it on the Mac. And then I want you to work with him, right? So that way you can have a good design. It doesn't have to be spectacular. It's a calculator, all right? It's not groundbreaking, okay? It's not something that's you're going to publish in the App Store, but I want you to test it on an actual machine, an actual device, right? Because when we test it on a device, it's always better. We know there's glitches that come up. All right, let's talk about some more details here. All right, so again, I've broken it up into 33 marks. The way I do this when I create assignments is you get lots of details, right? 33 marks is like points. Okay, think about this thing is weighted 10%. 33 points is 10% divided by 33. Each point is worth 1 part of the 10%. Okay, that's what it is. That's how I mark you, right? So if you think about this, I've spread it out. So I said, well, from a UI perspective, graphics user interface, right, there's 12 points. And there's 12 points for functionality, so it's equal, right, for you. 5 points for internal documentation, and guess what? Here's that ugly GitHub that I want you to do, right here. Can't get away from it. It's going to be part of every single assignment we do together. GitHub, okay? And some internal documentation. Who hates documentation? Anybody hate documentation? I know developers are notorious for hating documentation, right? Please don't hate it. Don't be a hater, all right? Like, you need to not love it. I'm not going to tell you love it, but you need to do some kind of documentation and tell me what the hell you're doing sometimes, right? Complex. I don't want a book. Don't give me this much documentation, like a book of documentation and 1 line of code, right? That's not what I'm looking for. I want very simple documentation that we're going to talk about. All right, so let's take a look at this. So the first part is UI and functionality. This is part 1. If you look at the document here, And part 1A is I want you to use a series of number buttons and the decimal point button that allow the user to enter a representation of an integer or floating point number in the display label. So that's equal marks, UI, and functionality. Just entering the data. That's all this stuff does, right? So if you can do that, and there's no functionality otherwise, you can't add, subtract, multiply, divide, right? If you make the operator buttons work, and that means plus, minus, times, and divide, and make the equals button give you your answer, right? Then that's also worth another 8 marks, okay? And then finally, and this is where you're going to get the 2 marks because you have to display it somewhere, some kind of display label or other suitable control that you can display your results with another 4. So at the minimum, you're going to get, if you just do these 2 pieces, there's no functionality for the calculator. All you do is put the buttons on, and you have the control, and somehow it shows the buttons in the control. That's 12 marks out of 33, okay? I've planned it this way for a reason, because some people in life are going to be UI designers. They're not going to be developers, right? So I got to give you some marks for the user interface piece, all right? A reset button. The reset button should reset the display to 0. And actually, what I'm also hoping that you'll notice is it's going to reset the calculator. So any kind of flags, anything you use to keep track of the calculator is got to be reset to 0. Okay. Internal documentation. I put some mark points here just so you understand what I'm looking for, not because I want to make it complex. Header at the top of all your Swift files. All right. That basically says, hey, here's the file name. Here's my name. Here's my student ID. Here's the date. Here's the description of what I'm doing. Here's my version information. And I'm talking about I added this method. I did this. And I'll show you how to do that, right? On all of your methods and classes. So if you make your own class, which we're going to talk about how to do at some point, in this particular case, it's just going to be mostly methods because I'm not going to show you how to do a new class within this first app. You can figure it out. If you use a new class or if you use a class of your own somehow, then I want you to document it. Ensure your program uses contextual variable names. So I don't want A's, B's, and C's, and I's, and J's. Please don't do that for loops or anything like that, okay? None of that in my class. We don't do that. So it's got to be human readable. I want contextual variable names. Like you have a lot of room for a variable name. Make sure you use them. And same thing with methods. Make your methods make sense. Ensure you include inline comments that describe your UI design and functionality. So if there's something that requires commenting, if you've done some kind of little code, when you first look at it, then you should comment it. But don't comment bad code. Don't look at it and go, I don't know what I'm doing here, so I'll comment the crap out of it so Tom can figure it out. No, that's not for that. If it's some kind of algorithm you've written or something, it may not be applicable here, which means it'll be a free mark for you guys in this particular case. But the marking scheme that I'm giving you here is pretty much going to be the same for your assignment and your projects too. This much detail, right? And then here's your GitHub. GitHub is you've got your code, right? If you just put your code up on GitHub as a backup, 2 marks. If you use GitHub with commits to demonstrate version control best practices, you get another 2 marks, okay? Bonus features. Make the splash screen work. Please don't just give me splash screen, right? Like this comes up and just says splash screen. That's not going to be the bonus marks, okay? Splash screen to me means you put a logo up there, you make it look professional, like it's your own calculator app. Okay, that's what a splash screen means. I'm not going to give you bonus marks if it's just, okay? Other math functions, if you include square root as an example and it works properly, and you do all the troubleshooting, there's troubleshooting involved here, guys and girls, right? You need to do user input validation, right? Like, what if I enter an A instead of a number? What happens? Can I do that somehow? What if I put a 1 and then a dot and then a 1 and then a dot, and press plus? Is it going to work? Right? You got to stop those things from happening. How do you do that? Right? And then if your app is adaptive to various orientations, so if you make it so that it works both in portrait and landscape, then I'll give you 4 marks. Right? Also, and it's not written here, if you make it work across adaptive to different viewport sizes. So for example, I have an iPhone 6, but if you make it work for an iPhone 4, an iPhone 7, the iPhone 8, you know, eventually, I don't know, you know, or an iPad, I'll give you 4 bonus marks too, right? So there's a lot of opportunity here for bonus marks. I don't care if you guys get all over 100% on this one. It's not about the marks. It's about, can you push yourself? You get 2 weeks though, right? And it's an individual assignment. You're not working with anybody else, right? So it's got to look different. I don't want to get the same code and stuff back every single time. How do you submit your work? You've never done this with me before, right? You're going to zip up your project files. I mean, the entire Xcode project. I want you to zip it up, right? And, or compress it. And then I want you to put that up on Dropbox, up on eCentennial, right? Give me a link to your active GitHub repo. Please don't give me a link to your GitHub account. That doesn't make sense. It's got to be that repo, that repository. We're going to go more into that, more details about that today, right? Here's the breakdown of where your marks are coming from. Again, 12 for UI, 12 for functionality, 5 for internal documentation, and 4 for version control, for a total of 33 marks for that 10%. If you're late, it's 20% deducted for the first day and 20% for every other day. It's heavy. Why? Because in real life, if I have a client meeting, right, and you're on my team, and we promise the client Friday that it's Friday, we got to be ready. If it's not Friday, guess what? We just lost an opportunity. That's what it's like, right? Especially if you're an indie developer, right? You need to be on time every single time, if not early. Speaking of early, next week, I will have a lab. I'm warning you in advance, right? I want to see your preliminary, your draft user interface by next week when we get together. So your lab, I will give you 1% of your final grade next week, right? If you get your user interface ready for me by next week. Now you might say, great, fantastic, but there's going to be people who don't even have any idea what I'm talking about right now, and they have no idea how to put that together. And that's part of it. So I want you to start working on it. Don't wait till next week to start, all right? That would be very bad. You have no time, truly, for this kind of project, right? This project looks easy. I'm warning you, it's not easy because of the details. Here's one thing I don't want you to do. I do not want you to evaluate you're going to get in from the result to get the result and spit it back out. I will not accept that as a solution, okay? And you don't know what I'm talking about, but there is an eval statement that allows you to do that here with Swift. That means you can look at a string and then say 1 + 5 + 3 divided by 2, and it'll evaluate the result. I don't want that. If you do that, that's cheating, right? And I don't mean cheating. I mean, don't do that. That's not the challenge here. The challenge is trying to make it work without some kind of statement, with raw code, right? It's going to test your code. It's going to show me what you can do. It's only with 10%. So worst case, if you don't know what you're doing or if you can't make it work, it's okay. It's not going to kill your mark for the class. For you to get extra bonus marks, right? Because if you're really that good, you should get really good bonus marks on this one. And, you know, to try and get to know the interface. The only way we can get to know Xcode, iOS, and Mac is to do something. We need to build something, even stupid, simple, like a calculator. All right? Any questions? All right. I know there's never questions when we give an assignment. And then they look at it. Yes, finally. Yes, please. Give me questions. Yes. You have 2 weeks, right? From now until then, right? I'm going to give you some time in class. So there'll be some time today. There'll be some time next week. I'm going to give you some time. And you can also come in. I know you don't want to come in here on the weekends. But if you don't have your own MacBook Pro, the alternative is Saturdays and Sundays. Sometimes the professor will let you in. I'm the professor for Saturdays. I'll let you in, right? There is room. 8:30 to 5 o'clock on a Saturday. If you come in anytime during that time, I'm here, right? So I can let you into the class. You can spend time in the lab, right? Do your thing and ask me questions, even if I'm teaching something else, all right? And this, by the way, it's pretty interesting, the stuff I'm teaching on Saturday. It's game. So worst case, it's not going to hurt you to come in and watch me teach people how to make games with Unity and with web technologies, okay? So that's what I'm doing Saturdays. So if you're welcome to come, I'm okay. If you all come, I don't know what I'm going to do with the other class, right? That'll be bad, right? So it's first come, first serve, whatever we can fit in. If you're going to come in, try not to make too much noise when you're here with everybody else, right? If it's packed, I mean, you know what it is, but I don't expect people to come in here Last time I made the same offer to people, to the last group of people that were doing this, no one came in on Saturday. I think I had 2 people, right? Because Saturday, it's your weekend, you work. I mean, let's face it, you've already been here 5 days this week, another day. That's why get yourself a Mac, right? Then you can work at home. What if, here's another thing. What if your friend who has a Mac in the class says, hey, you can work with me, buddy, right? Is that acceptable? I guess that's okay, but then the other person will have to stop development for you to make your use of their Mac. You need to have an account that's separate from theirs. That's a must. Don't work with their account because their GitHub is going to interfere with yours. It's going to happen 100%. Their Xcode is going to interfere with yours. Will interfere with yours, even if you sign up with your own account. So could you share? You probably can. I don't recommend it. Like I said, start early. I'll give you some time to start today. When we start talking about this thing. And I want you to think about now, if I was thinking about using the button, this idea of entering buttons, before we start today, before we stop talking about assignment number 1 and take a short break, because we've gone for about an hour already, believe it or not. That's how fast it is, right? Think about what an interface is, and you're going to learn this with Vinay's class as well with Android. Anyone do anything with Visual Studio and Windows Forms ever? Maybe a little bit. Well, if you've done stuff with Windows Forms, remember that everything that you put in on the screen, on the UI, it's all strings. That's number 1 you have to know, right? So if I look at a user interface, everything that I get input from the user is a string. If I get a string back from the user, what do I need to do? Convert it. I need to be able to convert from a string to an integer, or from a string to a floating point number, double, whatever it's going to be, right? So that's going to be the thing. Here's the other thing you're going to learn when you do this application, right? This little app. You're going to learn about Swift, right? Because you're going to build something, and building something is going to be necessity, and necessity is always what they say, the mother of invention, right? So it's going to push you to figure stuff out, go up on Google and Stack Overflow. You're going to do this kind of stuff, and you're going to figure out how to do stuff. Please don't copy somebody's code from Stack Overflow and say, calculated program on Swift, Stack Overflow. That's not the solution. That's not what we're doing here. You are here. I want you to really think about this seriously. I don't care about cheating. You're cheating, really, you're cheating yourself, because this is a graduate program, right? And it comes down to you're paying to cheat. That doesn't make any sense to me. Who cares if you graduate with a certificate? If you go to the job, you don't know anything, they're going to fire you, right? So that's how it is when it comes to mobile, because you're going to be like a key player. You might be the only person on the team that knows how to do it. So you need to know what you're doing. And, Googling a solution, sometimes there's no solution. You have to make your solution. So you need to really understand what you're doing. I want you to try this on your own. I want you to code it on your own as much as possible, right? Learnings over the next 2 weeks, right? Which means there's going to be times other than class time that you need to spend time thinking about how to code your project, right? Okay. So think about this. I'm getting input from the results box, whatever that results input is, right? I'm getting input. And then when I get input from that box, right, I got to convert it. Okay, and let's think about the process. It's just process, right? I press a button. It replaces the 0 that was originally there, because you have to think about a calculator. Look at this. This is reference. This is my reference right here. Here's my reference. I press C, it goes to 0. I press 1, it replaces 0 with a 1, right? I press 2, it adds a 2. If I press 0, it adds a 0. If I press dot, it adds a dot. If I press another dot, it doesn't add any more dots. You need to get that done. You have to test the crap out of your little project, right? How about if I divide by 0? What does that do, right? It gives me this, right? These things are the things you have to figure out. How does it look? It may not say not a number. Maybe it's going to say by 0, whatever, error. Put an error in there. It's got to say something where you can catch the problem before it happens, right? Because you don't want your code to crash your calculator. That would be very bad. Imagine your phone, you're calculating away and you press divide by 0 by accident, your just calculator goes poof and it goes away. That's really bad, right? So don't let that happen. So think about these things, these functions, right? What about this? If I say 0, right? And if I press dot, right? Notice that the dot goes right after the 0. What if I put 0 and then press 0 again? I'm not going to get more zeros here, right? These are all things you got to check for. I already have a 0. I put 1 0. It's okay. I put a second 0. No, right? I got to stop it. I got to. There's conditional statements we got to put in, if statements maybe, or other ways of testing what I'm getting, so I don't get this stuff happening, right? Or if I do some illegal operation, right? I need to stop myself from doing illegal operations. And now also think about the way buttons work. If you know, again, you guys are graduate level students, you should have all done some kind of button someplace in your career, right? And you should know what buttons are. It's gonna raise an event somehow, right? It's gonna raise it's gonna trigger some kind of method from firing, right? That's what it's gonna do when I click the button. Do I want to make a method for each button? Oh my God, that'd be crazy inefficient, right? That's terrible. What memory leak would we have, right? If we had all this kind of stuff happen. So that means that all these buttons got to use one event handler. That's the right way to do it. How do we do that, right? And if you've never done that before, that's a problem, right? Luckily, we're going to show you how to do that today, right? So that's going to be something we're going to show you. Same thing with the operators. Should you have a different method for operators compared to these buttons, right? You should. I think you should. I'll tell you why. And you might say, no, you don't need it. And you probably don't, but it's okay to separate it because the operators have a special function, right? The operators can do, if I press an operator like times right away, right? It doesn't do anything because it's 0. But what if, I'm just going to put this out there, I press 2, and then I press times, and then I press equals, and then I press equals, and I keep pressing equals forever. It should have, right? I want you to copy the way the calculator works as closely as possible. Okay, challenge for you guys. You're doing Android. If you've got time and if you're great as developing already, you're already comfortable, let's say with building apps or doing something like that. There might be some of you like that in here. Same app in Android, okay? If he doesn't give you the assignment, calculator app, build it anyway, all right? Because in real life, when we build an app on iOS, we don't just build it for iOS, we build it for iOS and Android, right? And the web. Do a calculator app for the web. If he isn't going to give you a web calculator, I hope he does, right? We talked about it. But if he doesn't, build it anyway. Try and use the same code too. Same kind of code structure for all 3 platforms because it should be similar. Because this is my Hello World app I'm giving you. Think about it, right? Tomorrow, it's going to be some other platform. If you know how to make a calculator app, you've learned the interface in some ways. I got input, I got output, right? I got calculations. I know how to convert. I know how to limit user input. Those are all things you're going to learn from doing this little app, right? Please don't cheat. There's ways of cheating. Don't do it, right? And of course, GitHub. You can learn GitHub, version control, right? The whole thing. Okay, I think I've sold the app to you. Let's take a short break. When we get back, we'll get back right into mobile development. We're going to do another app with the PowerPoint that I gave you. The PowerPoint today is 80 slides, right? And there's a reason for that today, right? All right, let's get back and let's take 10, okay? 10 minutes.